Bonjour.
Bonjour. So welcome to our YouTube channel. On this video, we are going to see a couple of Nobel laureates, particularly in the field of literature. So actually, the main Nobel Prize, it was awarded annually by the Swedish Academy to authors for their outstanding contributions in the field of literature. So it was actually given for many other contributions, including chemistry, physics, peace, and even physiology or medicine. So, as dictated by Nobel, Alfred Nobel, so his will is that the award is to be administered by the Nobel Foundation and was awarded by the Swedish Academy. So each recipient receives a medal, a diploma, and a monetary award prize that has varied throughout the years. So the first Nobel laureate in 1901, who was Sally Pradom, he received the Nobel amount in the Swedish currency. So that name is krona. So that was the first. So in other places we used to say dollars or rupees like that. So he used to got his price with 150 782 krona. So that was equivalent to some very huge amount nowadays. So the award is presented in Stockholm at an annual ceremony on generally on December, so which is the anniversary of Nobel's death. So as of 2024, the Nobel Prize in Literature has been awarded to 121 individuals, including 18 women. So 18 women have been awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature. Uh, then even the second highest number of any of the Nobel Prize behind the Nobel Peace Prize. So that was also given here. As of 2024, there have been 29 English speaking Nobel laureates of the Nobel Prize, followed by French with the 16 laureates and German with the 14 laureates. Then the highest number of Nobel laureates has the country France. So France has the highest number of Nobel laureates. So we are going to move on to the first Nobel laureate in literature, Sully Pradom. So he was a French poet and essayist. He got his Nobel in 1901. So do you want to add on to that?
So, Sally Pradom is a famous French poet and an essayist, and he got his prize, as you said, in 1901, and he was the first winner of Nobel Prize in Literature. And it looks like he studied science at school, but he was much interested in writing literature and other works. Like many of his essays are also based on scientific facts and science, but still he got prize for literature. So moving on, we will see the second recipient of Nobel Prize would be Christian Matthias Theodor Mommsen in 1902, and he is a German historian and also a jurist. So he belongs to somehow both social as well as literary side. And do you want to continue?
Yeah. So the third recipient was given an award, Nobel Prize in 1903. He was a Norwegian writer, uh, John Martinus Johnson. So yeah, he was a Norwegian writer. Then he was well known for his poetry, novel, and drama. So in 1904, we have Frederick Mistral. Uh, he was a French writer and even a Spanish statesman. And he was well known for his poetry and his contribution towards philology. Then in 1905, we have Henryk Sienkiewicz. He is a Polish writer. So, uh, so he was well known for his novels. So in 1905, we have another writer who is Giorgio Carducci. So he was an Italian. Italian poet. He is well known for his poetry, as you all say. So, moving on to the next slide, we have Rudyard Kipling, one of the famous British novelist and a journalist too. So, he was even well known for his short story and even poetry. His Nobel citation states that, within quotes, in consideration of the power of observation, originality of imagination, virility of ideas, and remarkable talent for narration that characterize the creations of this world famous author. So, this was a very good citation to be given to a Nobel laureate. So, his well known works include the first work, Life's Handicap, published in 1891. Then we have Kim, which was published in 1901. Then The White Man's Burden in 1899. Then obviously the famous book, The Jungle Book, which was published in 1894. We have several adaptations on this work. Then the collection include Justice of Stories, which was published in 1902. Then, if it was a famous poem by Rudyard Kipling, it was published in 1895. So,
Yeah,
Kim, uh,
and I would like to add one more thing about this Rudyard Kipling because he was called as a prophet of British imperialism. Like he was also called as poet of imperialism, and George Orwell was the one who called him like that. So he is someone who related with both India as well as England because he was born in Bombay and later he went to London for education. And the influence of India, we can see that in his work, The Jungle Book, which was published in the year 1894, isn't it?
yeah, that was good.
And it looks like he has also written like more or less 41 short stories. Apart from writing novels and poems and essays, he also written some short stories. And he also collaborated with his white sisters to write those short stories. It seems. And what do you want to say about him?
Yeah, so Kim, his novel is a journey towards self identity, we can say. So, the protagonist's name is Kimball O'Hara. He is going towards like a kind of pilgrimage. So, that was a story in Kim.
Yeah, he has written like we can see some of somehow his stories will have some comic elements and something like feel good stories we can say because he doesn't mainly deal with tragedies and all. So can we move on?
Yeah. Yeah, in next year, 1908, we have Rudolf Christoph Eucken. He was a German philosopher. Yeah, he's well known for his philosophy. Yeah, then next year, in 1909, we have Selma Ottilia Livisa Lagerlof. So she was a very great novelist and even short story writer, Swedish writer, we can say. Do you want to continue?
Yeah, of course. So in the next following year in 1910 we have Paul John Ludwig Hesse and he belongs to Germany. And like looks like most of the German writers were at higher hand when during these times because they are continuously winning Nobel Prize it seems. And in following year, 1911, it was Maurice Masterwink. In 1911, he belongs to Belgium. So he is a Belgium playwright. He is famously known for his plays. And he has got a Nobel Prize in 1911. And following Morris, we have Bernhard Johann Robert Hauptmann. So he also belongs to Germany again. And he is a German dramatist and novelist for that matter. And he got his Nobel Prize in 1912. And following that, we have Rabindranath Tagore, who was an Indian polymath. He was born in the year 1861 and he lived till 1941. And he got his Nobel Prize in 1913. And it is Rabindranath Tagore who was the first Indian to get a Nobel Prize. Until now, he's the only Indian has received a Nobel Prize for that matter. So, do you want to add anything about his literary career?
Yeah, so he has a very broad literary career towards his throughout his life. We have his famous works mentioned here, so which is Gitanjali in 1910, Gora, then Shokir Bali. So he was a well-known short story writer, as we can say. He is also a very good translator for that matter. So for that only we call him a polymath. So Tagore, he wrote many plays and even a drama, well-known drama, which is the Muktadara in 1922. Then we have his famous compilation of lectures, which is The Religion of Man. So his Nobel Award citation states that because of his profoundly sensitive, fresh, and beautiful verse, by which, with consummate skill, he has made his poetic thought, expressed in his own English words, a part of the literature of the West. So, here the literature of the West, so they have mentioned that also. Then we have his other famous works like um, then we have other works include The Post Office, which is a play. Then even Rakta Karbi, which translates blood oleanders. It is an allegorical struggle against a kleptocrat king who rules over the residents of Yakshapuri. So it took place in a very famous cities or towns. Then we have Chitrangada and Chandalika. So these are some key plays which improves the dance and dramatic adaptations. So these together are known as Rabindra Nritya Natya. So his short stories also include The Beggar Women, then Gal Pugucha. Then we have he also wrote many of his works in Bengali also. Then Kabuliwala, which translates the fruit seller from Kabul. Then we have the Hungry Stones, Shuddha Passion. Then Ati, the Runaway. So these are some of his short stories. Then moving on to the novels of him, we have Chokir Bali, as I told before, The Home and the World in 1916. Then even Gora. Then he also wrote about the Sepoy mutiny in the Gora. Then we have his Joga Jog. Then even Shiva Sati, Dakshayani. So yeah, that's it. In poetry, we have that famous Gitanjali, which so for that he was awarded Nobel Prize. It seems it is a very best known collection of poetry by him. Yeah, besides Gitanjali, we have other poetry like Manasi, Sonartori, Balaka. Yeah, he had a very distinctive poetic style, as we know. Then even he was very influenced by Upanishads or Vyasa's works and even Bhakti or Sufi movements. Yeah, that's it about him. Yeah, the next author who got Nobel Prize in 1915 is Romain Rolland. So he was a French novelist mainly. He was also a dramatist. Then in 1916 we have a Swedish poetry and novelist. He is Werner von Heidenstam. Then we have so in 1917 we have Danish writers like Carol Adolf. Carol Adolf. He was well known for his poetry, and even he was partnered with Henrik Pontoppidan. He was also from Denmark. He was well known for his novel. Yeah. Then some 1918 the Nobel Prize wasn't awarded. In 1919, we have a Swiss poet. He was from Switzerland, Germany. Then he was well known for his poetry, Karl Friedrich Spittler. In 1920, we have a Norwegian writer. So he's well known for his novel Nut Hamsun. So he was awarded Nobel Prize in 1920. Then Anatole France was awarded Nobel in 1921. He was well known for his poetry and his contribution towards journalism. He also wrote many of the novels. Then in 1922, Jacinto Benavente. So he got the Nobel Prize. He's from Spain. He was well known for his drama. So he was a well known Spanish dramatist, we can say. So moving on to the next Nobel laureate.
Next Nobel laureate we have is William Butler Yeats. And he was born in the year 1865 and he lived till 1939. And he got the following prize of Nobel in 1923. So we know that WBH is someone very powerful in his writings, and he's also a former senator of the Irish Free State. He's also a poet as well as a dramatist. So WBH actually he was the one who's like he was the one who was in charge in reviving the Irish literature because like he was the one who actually revived the Irish tradition in literature, and he was also in charge for Irish Revival Literary Society. I guess it's something like that. And as we have the list of his works, the foremost work of WBH would be The Wandering of Oisin and Other Poems. So this is a poetry collection, and that was published in the year 1889. And the next following that we have the Lake Isle of Innisfree, which was published in 1890. And then the Celtic Twilight, that's actually a prose that was published in the 1893. And as I said before, he was the driving force behind the Celtic revival or the Irish Literary Society or the Irish Literary Revival. So this Celtic Twilight is one of the for our founders, like it was one of the important works in order to revive the Irish Literary Society thing. And he was also majorly influenced by the romantics of English literature, like P.B. Shelley and John Keats. So the later romantics were very much powerful because the Yeats was influenced by them. And he also found the Abbey Theatre, and that is the also known as the National Theatre of Ireland. Along with the Lady Gregory and Edward Martin, he opened an Abbey Theatre in 1904, and he was the first Irishman to be awarded the Nobel Prize in 1923. And some of his famous poems include The Second Coming in 1920, Easter 1916, which was published in the same year, 1916, and The Wild Swan at Cooley. So that was about a Cooley Park, and that was published in the year 1919. And we have the Yeats. The title is The Tower. In that poetry collection only, he was writing about the sailing to Byzantium, Leda and Swan among the school children. So these are the works that come under the collection The Tower. And his famous dramas would be like he has written many plays. For that, one would be like The Resurrection in 1927, The Death of Cuchulainn in 1935, The Hernes Egg in 1938. So these are some of his famous poems, like sorry, the plays. And he's also known for biography scenes. Like he has written a biography titled The Trembling of the Whale. So he's also written autobiographies. He has also written prose, plays, and poems. So he's somehow an all-rounder in English literature. And he actually died in France due to ill health. And that time only W.H. Auden was writing about William Butler Yeats after like he was very much influenced by Yeats, and Auden was writing some elegies and tributes to Yeats also. So do you want to add anything?
Yeah, we move on to the next slide.
So following him we have Stanislaw Raymond. He was a Polish novelist, and he got the Nobel Prize in 1924. So that was about Stanislaw Raymond. And moving on, we have George Bernard Shaw. So, do you want to talk about him?
Yeah, so George Bernard Shaw was a famous dramatist and playwright, and even a best critic, we can say. So his famous work include Pygmalion in 1913. We have the character like Eliza Doolittle, and Man and Superman in 1902. Then we have The Dark Lady of the Sonnets in 1910, which is a short comedy by him. Then we have that classification between George Bernard Shaw's play. So we classify them as pleasant plays and unpleasant plays. So under the pleasant plays, we have The Man of Destiny in 1897, Arms and the Man in 1894. Then we have Candida in 1894. Then You Never Can Tell in 1896. Then in Unpleasant Place, we have Widower's House in 1892, The Philanderer in 1898, then Mrs. Warren's Profession in 1893. So other than this, he also wrote a very vast, very majority of plays, which was read among the public with uh, very interesting thing. That is also very interesting thing.
Yeah, and he's also called as Fabian socialist. So, as you said, he was Irish playwright and critic, and he was also like from his young age, he was pushed into the field of politics. So, he was actually the youngest child of a civil servant, and because of that, he was also much interested in socialism, and that's why he was called as Fabian socialist. And he is also considered to be the first modern dramatist to be awarded both the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1925 and Oscar in 1938. So he also got Oscar awards, and he got that award for his work on the film of his play Pygmalion. And the lengthy prefaces to Shaw's play reveals his mastery of English prose. And he also once said that, I quote, I write plays with the deliberate purpose to convert the nation to my opinion. So you can see how powerful George Bernard Shaw is, like how he had his thing in his mind that he wanted to create something different from his other contemporaries. And he's also known as the co-founder of the London School of Economics and Political Science in 1895. And he wrote almost 60 plays with social problems. So that's why he's called as Fabian Socialist, as I said before. And he's also like he's known for establishing leading theater, and he was also a music critic, and he wrote critics and reviews for uh, Saturday Review, so that's a critic of play for it, and the Dramatic Review, that's also a review where he was writing his criticism. And other than that, he has also wrote the Star. So the Star is another magazine where criticism are focused on music, so that's why he's also called as a music critic. And he started his literary careers by writing novels, but then they were not successful. But his plays were the one that made him success. So that was about George Bernard Shaw. And one more thing I would like to add is like he was influenced by Norwegian playwright Henrik Ibsen. There were many Nobel writers who are influenced by other writers who haven't got Nobel, it seems. That's a new thing I was able to find when doing a research on Nobel laureates. And he also opposed the theory of art for art's sake because he doesn't focus on that, and he actually wanted to create something change in the minds of people, so he doesn't like the theory art for art's sake. And he's also written short stories. It seems like the one of the short stories would be The Black Girl in Search of God, so that was published in the year 1932. So that was about George Bernard Shaw. So do you want to continue, or can we move on?
Yeah, we can move on.
So following him, we have like in 1926, we have Grazia Deledda. She's an Italian writer, and she got her Nobel Prize in 1926. And following Grazia, we have Henry Bergson in 1927 because he got the Nobel Prize in 1927, and he's a French philosopher. And in 1928, you have a Norwegian novelist, Sigrid Sigrid Undset, and the Nobel goes to Sigrid Undset in 1928. So the writer belongs to the genre of novel. Moving on, can you read?
Yeah. So we have the Nobel laureate Thomas Mann, who got the Nobel Award in 1929. So his citation include principally for his great novel Buddenbrooks. So the citation itself included his work, which is Buddenbrooks, which has won steadily increased recognition as one of the classical works of contemporary literature. So he's a well-known novelist, short story writer, even a very great essayist. Then his first work include Little Mr. Friedman, which was published in 1898. It is the first short story collection by him. Then we have Budden Brooks. So that was published in 1901. Then we have Death in Venice, which is also an important work by him, published in 1912. Then The Magic Mountain, we have in 1924. The Transposed Heads in 1940. I think from this work, The Transposed Head, we have an Indian writer that was also a famous work, Girish Karnad. Do you know which novel by him was inspired from this work?
So the transport is actually novel, and that influenced Girish Karnad's play higher than I think.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, then we have Dr. Faustus by him. He also wrote this work, Dr. Faustus, in 1947. Then at last we have Felix Krull, Confidence Man, which is an unfinished work by him. Like it was published in 1954. Yeah, this was about his some of the major works. Do you want to add anything about him, or shall we move on?
I think we have said enough, and Thomas Mann is also someone who is known for his plays, as you said. So we shall move on. So next writer would be Sinclair Lewis. He was born in the year 1885 and he lived till 1951. And it seems like he was the first American to get the Nobel Prize. Like he was the first American to receive, and he's an American novelist, playwright, and a short story writer. He got the Nobel Prize in 1930, and the first work would be Hike and Aeroplane. So that was published in the year 1912. So while publishing that work, he went with a pseudonym called Tom Graham. So while publishing his first work, he went with his pseudonym, and afterwards he started writing with his own name itself. And his first serious novel was Our Mrs. Wren. So Our Mr. Wren was the first serious novel written by Sinclair Lewis, and following that, he wrote The Trial of Hawk and The Job. So these three are the novels written by him, and which are like he gave his most importance. Like he gave himself to write those novels, it seems. And then we have and then we have the famous novels we have written here, like Babbitt in 1922, Aerosmith in 1925, and Aerosmith for that he got Pulitzer Prize also, but he eventually he refused that. He doesn't want Pulitzer Prize, so he declined the prize itself. So after Aerosmith, he got he published Elmer Gantry in 1927, and that was about the evangelic minister and how he was deeply hypocritical. So that was about that. And after winning the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1930, Sinclair Lewis wrote 11 more novels, and the best one among these is It Can't Happen Here, which was published in the year 1935. So that was a novel about an election of a fascist to the American presidency. So that was a famous novel which he published after getting a Nobel Prize. And his final novel would be World So Wide, which was published in the year 1951, and that was actually published after, posthumously. Like he may have written before his death, and that was published after his death, it seems. And he's also written a short story called Little Bear Bog that was published in the year 1930. And for his plays, like his dramas, we have, as I said before, It Can't Happen Here, that was a play which was published in the year 1936. And he also written Angela is 22 in 1938. So he has also written many plays, but he is famously known for his novels, it seems. So do you want to add anything more to Sinclair Lewis?
No, shall we move on?
Okay. So the next one who got after Sinclair Lewis was Eric Axel Karlfeldt. So he was born in the 1864 and he lived till 1931 and he belonged to Sweden. So he's a Swedish poet and he's famously written many poems. So moving on, we have John Galsworthy. So do you want to say anything about John Galsworthy?
Yeah, so John Galsworthy was a famous English novelist and a playwright. Then we have his famous short story collections. He wrote it under a pseudonym as John St. John. So because this is his first short story collection, right? So the Four Winds in 1897. Then we have Jocelyn in 1898. Then the Silver Box, which is a famous work by him in 1906. Then Justice in 1910. Then we have the Forsyth Saga Chronicle, which contains some of his works like the Forsyth Saga, a modern comedy, then end of the chapter. Do you want to add anything about him?
Like he has written many works. He's famously known for his novels, and like 16 works he have written under his own name, like John Galsworthy. And he has written four works in the pseudonym John St. and you have said those novels also. And he has also written a novel of love that is called The Dark Flower, which was published in the year 1913. And he has written Strife in 1909. So that is a study of labor rights and industrial relations. And you have said Justice, and that is about a realistic portrayal of prison life and institutionalism. So he wrote something that deals with the prison also. That's also something in a realistic manner. So that was published in the year 1910, as you said. And Law and Peace. So that is also a novel he wrote in 1910, and that deals with anti-Semitism. He wrote something about the hatred of Jewish people. So something on that content also he has written. And his novel, The Man of Property, which was published in the year 1906, he created a new type of fiction by balancing the virtues and vices of his hero, Holmes Faust, against the vices and virtues of other members of the same family. So he gave some subject on internal dysfunctional family, something like that. He has written in those time itself. Like he was a very powerful writer, and he refused the offer of a knighthood. So he had a chance of becoming Sir John Galsworthy, but he declined it. And he was elected as the first president of the late section of the Pen Club, an international body of poets. And as you said, the Forsyth Saga Chronicle. So that was about that dealt with middle class Victorian society. And his Indian Summer of Forsyth. So that work is considered to be a masterpiece of John Galsworthy. And we have and looks like he has received the Order of Merit in 1929, and he was also appointed as Romance lecturer at Oxford University in 1931. So he is a very powerful writer, it seems. So shall we move on with the next writer?
Yeah,
So the next writer could be in 1933. The Nobel was received by Ivan Alexeyevich Bunin. So he is a Russian writer and famously known for his novels, dramas in the language of Russian. And following him in 1934, we have Luigi Pirandello. So he's an Italian dramatist and a novelist who got the Nobel Prize in 1934. Moving on, shall you continue?
yeah. We have Eugene Gladstone O'Neill. So he got his Nobel laureateship in the year 1936. So as we all know, he was an American playwright. His famous works include Beyond the Horizon, Anna Christie, Harry Ape, Desire Under the Elms, Strange Interlude, Morning Becomes Electra, Our Wilderness, which is also a comedy play by him, The Iceman Comet, Long Day's Journey into Night. So his early plays appeared in between 1916 and 1920. So he also helped to initiate the American theaters shift away from elegant parlor dramas and toward gritty naturalistic plays. So he was considered to be the, yeah, I think Eugene O'Neill was he became the first American dramatist to win this prize. Okay. Then longer, more deeply felt plays appeared in his 1920s. So many of these dramas were strongly influenced by the psychoanalytical theories of Sigmund Freud, so and even Carl Jung for that matter. And they stripped away people's civilized veneers and probed their inner psyches. So the work here I've mentioned, Beyond the Horizon, that was his first work. It focuses on the fruitless dreams of a farm family. So then we have The Emperor Jones in 1920, which was one of the first American plays with a lead role for black actors, concerns the leader of a West Indies island whose subject rebel drive then actually that drive him into the jungle and finally killed him. So it uses the expressionistic techniques such as distorting time and action to expose characters' emotional states. Then we have Anna Christie, that was his famous work. So that features a noble prostitute. Then that work contains slang-filled dialogue. Then and the use of the fog and the sea to symbolize different states of mind. As we all know, he got influenced from the psychoanalytical theory. So then we have the Harry Ape in 1922. So in that, so the Harry Ape is we have the character a ship stalker. The person who feeds coal into the ship's furnace is transformed into an animalistic rough. Then we have All God's Children's God Wings in 1924. Then Desire Under the Elms, that alludes to the themes of Greek mythology and uses New England farm life as the setting of the tragic tale involving adultery, incest, and infanticide. And one very interesting thing about him is that Eugene O'Neill got four Pulitzer prizes for his works. Then we have Morning Becomes Electra in 1931, in which the tragic Greek story of Electra, providing mythic resonance of the story of a New England family confronted by death during the Civil War. Then we have his only comedy, which is Our Wilderness, published in 1933, a story of small town life set at Eugene O'Neill's childhood summer home in Connecticut. So our Wilderness also becomes as one of the famous works. Then we have The Iceman Comet, A Long Day's Journey into Night, and A Moon for the Misbegotten. Then, actually, of these, Iceman Comet appeared during Eugene O'Neill's lifetime. Then we have A Long Day's Journey into the Night is even more autobiographical. Yeah, that's it. Then we end this author with criticism by him. So T.S. Eliot said it was one of the most moving plays I have ever seen, and even critic Brendan Gill described it as the finest play written in English in my lifetime. So with that, let's move on to the next writer or next Nobel laureate.
So the next Nobel laureate is Roger Martin Lugas. So he's a French novelist and he got the Nobel Prize in the year 1937. Moving on, we have Perles Buck, who got the Nobel Prize in 1938. Do you want to read?
Yeah. So Pearl Buck is an American novelist. She was born in West Virginia. Then she was well known for her Pulitzer Prize award-winning fiction, which is The Good Earth in 1931. Then even she has remained popular for her work Dragon Seed in 1942. Then she wrote several novels under the pseudonym John Sedges, and even she published two volumes of autobiography, My Several Worlds in 1954, and A Bridge for Passing in 1964. Her last works include The Kennedy Woman in 1970 and China as I See It in 1970. Then we have her very first work, which is East Wind, West Wind. Then a trilogy she has written, which is very famous, the House of the Earth trilogy, The Good Earth 1931, Sons in 1932, A House Divided in 1935. Then we have Fighting Angel, which is her biography of her father. Then The Exile, the biography of her mother. Then one interesting thing is she has the Chinese name of her, which is Sai Zhenshu. Yeah, so with that, let's move on to the next author.
So the next authors include Franz Emil Schlampa, who got the Nobel Prize in 1938. The writer belongs to Finland. And the following that we have John Wilhelm Jensen, a Danish writer who got the Nobel Prize in 1944. Next writer would be Gabriela Mistral, so a Chilean poet and a diplomat who got the Nobel Prize in 1945. So we can see the difference in the years. Like after 1939, the next prize comes in the year 1944. So the rest of the year, the Nobel was not awarded to anyone, and it is like it is left blank. So the years like 1940, 1941, 1942, 1943, so the Nobel was not awarded to anyone for the field of literature. Moving on, we have Hermann Hesse, uh, who was born in the year 1877 and two lived till 1962. Like he belongs to Germany. He's a German Swiss poet and a novelist, and he's also famously known for his novel Siddhartha, which was published in the year 1922. And it looks like 1922 is going to be a very famous year for among all the writers, it seems. So the first work would be 1904. It was published in 1904. It is called as Peter Kamenzine. So that was the first work of Hermann Hesse. And following that, he has written Gertrude in 1910. And we have the Demian that was also written in 1919. And he used a pseudonym called Emil Sinclair. And following that, he published his famous work Siddhartha. It was in 1922. And the next work would be Der Steppenwolf, which was published in 1927. And it looks like his best known works that include would be Steppenwolf, which I said before, Siddhartha, and the one more thing would be The Glass Bead Game. So that was also his famous novel, which was published in the year 1943. So, and each of these novels explores an individual search for authenticity, self-knowledge, and spirituality. And he has also written many poems, it seems. So the first famous poem would be Madonna. So that was published in the year 1896, which appeared in a Viennese periodical, and he released a small volume of poetry, romantic songs in that periodical, it seems. And after that, he wrote One Hour After Midnight, that is also a poetry collection. That was published in 1898. In order to, he has written that in order to please his wife, it seems. And his second novel, The Beneath the Wheel, that was published in the year 1906 after his first novel, Peter Kamazine. And as I said before, Siddhartha is the masterpiece of Hermann Hesse, and that was derived from Hesse's interest in Schopenhauer, like a philosophy and philosophy. So he combined the um, it was actually an amalgamation of both philosophy and theology. That is the birth of the work Siddhartha, it seems. And that was also like he wrote that because of his interest towards India. And along with that, he has also received a Swiss citizenship in 1923. And he has other major works would include Khargas, which was published in 1925, the Nuremberg Trip in 1927. So these two have some kind of autobiographical narratives because he was able to like give his own life's details in those novels. And he has written a biography for his friend Hugo Ball, and that's it about the literary career of Hermann Hesse. So we shall move on to the next writer. That is Andre Paul Guillaume. So that is nothing but Andre Gide. So that's a French writer. The famous works would be the first work would be Le Café de Andre Walter. So that is the first work. It is in English translation called as The Notebook of Andre Walter. And the second work would be Fruits of the Earth, which was published in the year 1897. And the next one would be The Immortalist in 1902. And following that, we have The Pastoral Symphony in 1990. So, do you want to add anything more to Andre Gide?
No, we shall move on to the next writer.
Okay. The next one would be Thomas Stearns Eliot. So, do you want to continue?
Yeah. So T.S. Eliot was a very famous writer. He was an American-born British poet. So he was born in Missouri in 1888. Then, like he later settled in London. Then he died in London itself in 1965. So he was a very famous novelist and essayist. Then his first work include uh, Prufrock and Other Observations in 1917. In that we have the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. That was one of the famous poem by him. So in Prufrock we have the like in J. Alfred Prufrock, we have that epigraph taken from Dante's Inferno, and so that was very important. This images and even Prufrock lives in a solitary gloom because he was a very well educated man. He used to live alone. So about him and the satiring of high class. So we can see those elements in the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. Then we have Portrait of a Lady and Helen. Then also we have his other famous essays like Tradition and the Individual Talent. In that, so that famous essay appeared in his critical volume named The Sacred Wood in 1920. In 1920 itself, we have the work Gerontion. Then we have his early poetical works like uh, The Wasteland. So that was very famous work by him that we know. That was published in 1922. The earlier name that was given to The Wasteland is He Who Writes the Policeman. So that was the famous title given before the publishing. Then Ezra Pound came and edited those big lines, and T.S. Eliot published his famous work The Wasteland to him, call him Il Magliore di Fabro. So this title, He Do the Police in Different Voices, that was taken from Charles Dickens' novel Our Mutual Friend. So that is very important. Then we have the sections in Wasteland include The Burial of the Dead, A Game of Chess, The Fire Sermon, Dead by Water, What the Thunder Said. Even we have another famous writings by him, which is Four Quartets, 1935 to 42. We have Burnt Norton, East Cocker, The Dry Salvages, Little Gidding. Then so everything has its own significance. He even wrote The Journey of the Magi, which includes the adventurous journey towards the Christ. Then we have aerial poems, then Hollow Man, The Wasteland. Even Ash Wednesday was very famous work by him. And one famous thing is that Eliot was influenced by the Sanskrit philosophy. He even used those terms in his work, The Wasteland. So, the wasteland ends with the uh, Datta Dvamyam Dayatvam, then Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So, those are the words from Wasteland. And I want to add on to that. In Nolan's movie Oppenheimer, we have a very minute, like 1 or 2 seconds appearance of the wasteland, and this published in the Criterion. So that was very important fact. One interesting fact too. Then yesterday I came across Christopher Nolan was given a knighthood. So that was also one of the current affairs I wanted to tell. So yeah, we have completed T.S. Eliot. We have his plays and essays, as I told before. His other plays include Sweeney Agonistes in 1926, Murder in the Cathedral in 1935, which explores the how Thomas Becket was murdered by King Henry. So, and even we have those that small event was taken into a large play. So that was very commendable. Then we have the family reunion, the cocktail party, the confidential clerk, the elder statesman. I think Goodbye Party to Miss Pushpa is also written by him. Yeah. Then we have his essays like, as I told before, The Sacred Wood, The Metaphysical Poets, Tradition and the Individual Talent, then Hamlet and His Problems. Because everyone is praising Shakespeare's works, including Hamlet, he was the very famous person who tells some of the failures in that work too. In that, he coined the term objective correlative. So, that is very important. This Hamlet and his problems in 1920. So, with that, we will move on to the next Nobel laureate.
Yeah, I would like to add one more thing about this idiot, I guess, because he called Hamlet as Mona Lisa of literature, it seems.
Okay.
And he was also associated with this new criticism. And he called this new criticism theory itself as a lemon squeezer. So he's also associated with many literary theories, it seems.
Okay.
And the next writer is William Faulkner.
Yeah, so William Faulkner. So, yeah, William Faulkner. Yeah, another I would like to add on to that. Uh, we have 434 lines in which work of T.S. Eliot. Do you know
Today's
that?
one.
Yeah, so yeah, that was very interesting thing. So moving on to Faulkner, he is a very famous American novelist, and he wrote many novels. Then even some 20 novels he wrote. Then he's very famous for his mythical Yoknapata of a county. So he, so most of his works took place in that place. We have soldiers pay, mosquitoes, sartosses, or flag in the dust, the sound and the fury, which was a very famous work. And the title significance has its like it was taken from Hamlet. Then, as I lay dying, Absalom and Absalom, Requiem for a Nun. Then he is very well known for his Snopes trilogy. It contains the Hamlet, the town, the mansion. Then the rivers, a reminiscence. Then Mississippi poems, a rose for Emily. So that was his short story. Then even Faulkner is very well known for his screenplays, and even wrote for many movies, which was directed by Howard Hawks, like To Have and Have Not, which was in 1945 adapted from the novel by the American writer Ernest Hemingway. And even he wrote the screenplays for the Big Sleep in 1946. Then actually Faulkner's works demanded much of his readers. To create a mood, he might let one of his complex or convoluted sentences run on for more than a page. So his writing style is such like that. He's a well-known you mean he's a well-known writer. Like he as I lay dying, which is one of the major works, the story of a family's journey to bury a mother. So we can see that kind of story there in Light in August in 1932. So that was kind of sequel. Then in Absalom and Absalom, we have Thomas Sudpen's attempt to found a southern dynasty. Then in Unvanquished, that was a work by him. Then we know Hamlet, which is the first novel in a trilogy. Then go down Moses. It is a collection of Yoknapatawar County stories, of which the novella The Bear is the best known. Then we have Intruder in the Dust, which was published in 1948, a fable, The Town, The Mansion. So these are all the complete. So these are all completed the Snape's trilogy. Then, as I told, The Rivers is also one of the work by him. Faulkner especially was interested in multi-generational family chronicles. So we have to analyze the style in which he is writing, and many characters appear in more than one book. So this gives the Yoknapatava County saga a sense of continuity that makes the area and its inhabitants seem real. So we also have many fictional towns induced by many writers across the world. So Faulkner continued to write both novels and short stories until his death.
Yeah, and one more thing I found interesting about this fellow is like he wrote 19 novels, 125 short stories, 20 screenplays, one play, and six collections of poetry. And within that span, he made a short span, and he wrote this many in his life. That's something interesting in his life.
That's nice. Hmm.
Yeah, so we shall move on to the next writer. The next writer would be Bertrand Russell. He was born in 1872 till 1970, and he was a British philosopher and a logician. So Bertrand Russell is someone very powerful in terms of logician, mathematician, like mathematics, history, socialism, political controversy. So he was involved in all these sorts of arena in his life, and he was the one who mainly focused on analytic philosophy also. And his first work would be German Social Democracy, which was published in the year 1896. And the second work of his is called On Devoting. That was published in the year 1905. And that was his philosophical essay, and which has been considered as the paradigm of philosophy itself. So he is someone very he had much influence on, especially like the philosophy of language, epistemology, metaphysics, and he was also a prominent anti-war activist. He also championed anti-imperialism. So, because he was campaigned against Adolf Hitler, and then he also criticized Stalinist totalitarianism. So, like he was also somehow very much related to the politics, I guess. And his works like Principia Mathematics in that was like in 1910 to 1930. So that was like this. And we have his other works like Principles of Social Reconstruction in 1916, Justice in Wartime in 1916, Mysticism and Logic and Other Essays in 1918, Why I'm Not a Christian, that's also an essay written by Russell. And he has also written something like The Analysis of Mind in 1921, The ABC of Atoms in 1923, and he also wrote Power, a New Social Analysis in 1938. And he has also written some work like A History of Western Philosophy in 1945. And at last, he wrote My Philosophical Development in 1959. So he wrote something more about philosophy, and he belongs to this analytical school of philosophy, and he was also influenced by P.V. Shelley and J.S. Mill. And it looks like he also made a cameo appearance, like playing himself in the anti-war Hindi film Aman, like that was published, like that was released in India in 1967. So he made a cameo appearance there. These are some of the literary developments in his life in short. I was able to say.
Yeah. Yeah, so as you told about the influences and his connection towards India, he also studied in Trinity College, Cambridge. So, in which even Ramanujam, one who invented zero, he also studied there. So, they were a colleague, then they were friends. Also, they used to review their works and even their studies. So, that was an interesting thing.
Yeah, and looks like he was also elected as the Fellow of Royal Society in 1908, and he also awarded the Order of Merit in 1949.
Okay. So I would like to add that even T.S. Eliot got Order of Merit in 1948. I forgot to mention.
Okay. Looks like many British writers have received that Order of
Yeah,
Merit award, it seems.
correct.
Yeah, we have covered like 50 years. So why don't we put a stop for
Yeah,
now?
sure, sure, sure. We'll continue the remaining in the next video of ours.
Yeah, sure, we'll do that.
Sure. So until then, Anyu.
안녕.